At 4ZZZ, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal and Jagera people. We acknowledge that their sovereignty over this land was never ceded,
and we stand in solidarity with them.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ, amplifying the trans and gender non-conforming voices of Brisbane and beyond.
You're listening to 4ZZZ, and this is Transmission, bringing you all of the news and tunes for the trans, gender non-conforming and non-binary community. I'm your host today. My name is Sev. My pronouns are he and they, and I'm so grateful for you for joining us. And to start off, I'm just going to report on some of the trans news from around the world. Starting out, in a closed hearing on November 30th, Russia's Supreme Court has ruled that the international LGBT movement is an extreme organization. The top court ruled in favor of the Justice Ministry's lawsuit that claimed that the LGBT movement had incited social and religious discord. In the days since, there have been multiple reports of police raids on gay venues and parties, allegedly with police photographing the passports of everyone found in attendance and keeping a running record of members of the LGBT community. Multiple venues have already closed their doors for the last time, some reporting being evicted by landlords under these new laws of extreme organizations gathering and holding leases. This is a story that's still unfolding and developing. And obviously a lot of the information coming out is, patchy, and some of the information I saw a couple of days ago has already vanished. So this is definitely one of those stories that I'm going to continue to keep an eye on and report on here. In other international news affecting trans folks, the UK government has released a blacklist of countries that it believes let people transition too early. Therefore, any immigrant seeking access to the UK will likely in future have to undergo further invasive examination and interview because, according to Whitehall sources in the UK, more than 50 countries and US states have been removed from a list of jurisdictions regarded as having sufficiently robust processes for recognising gender. Again, absolutely heartbreaking and horrific for trans communities, particularly, in that area. There are surrounding countries for whom self-ID has been a thing for many years now, and even just travelling now between Wales and England could become very difficult. Obviously, our thoughts with our trans non-binary siblings across the world. Things have been difficult here in Australia this year, and there has been a lot of controversy, but when we see what is happening overseas, it is really important that we remember we're a global community, that we have trans siblings all over the world. And it's really important that we pay attention to these stories as well, because we can't let it get that far here. We can't let it. Our trans siblings deserve our respect and support and to self-identify. So those are two big trans news stories coming out around the world right now. So here in our home, here in Meanjin, we deserve a little bit of community and a little bit of connection and the power to stand together. So in this week's events, first up, I've been shouting it out a lot. We're going to keep shouting it out. On Friday, the 15th of December, Hope D presents Queermas. So this is an event by Hope D, Handsome at the Wickham on the 15th. We've got a beautiful come and celebrate all that is queer and joyful with a lineup personally curated by guitar pop sensation Hope D, featuring performances from Handsome, The Empty Threats, Chloe Dad, Ixorus, Dog God, and DJ sets from the legendary Nisha Alexander and Odaka. Tickets are available via a Facebook page. Please go check that out. Hope D presents Queermas. We deserve to be with our chosen family. Really looking forward to celebrating with you all. Speaking of Christmas events, we also have a Bushed as Krampus bash at the Cave Inn by Bushed Poetry alongside Junebug, Andy Payne. Look, it's an incredible looking event. That one is on Friday the 22nd of December at the Cave Inn. That is free entry, and that is going to be a queer old good time. And lastly, in events, if I may take a moment to let you all know about a very exciting event that I happen to be a part of. Every Friday night from now until the 22nd of December, we have a show called The Toucan Kings at the Pip Theatre in Milton. This is a drag king theatre show. Entirely drag king performances. A number of us performers are trans non-binary drag kings, and it's incredible. It's a tribute to like 70s sleaziness, sexiness, and I don't want to give you spoilers, but when they asked me if I had a 10-minute drag act that I'd happily bring to stage, the way I salivated and took only 3 seconds to say, only if you'll let me do all of Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell. So if that sounds like your jam, please come and check us out at the Pip Theatre. It's Toucan Kings, Friday nights. Super, super good time. Now, I have some awesome stuff for us today. I've got a really cool guest in studio I can't wait to introduce you all to, but we're going to cut to some songs. And when we come back, we are going to be talking to my awesome guest.
Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Meanjin, Brisbane and beyond.
Transmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music and events.
Every Tuesday from 9am till 10am.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9am till 10am on 4ZZZ.
This is Transmission. We are amplifying the voices of the trans, non-binary and gender non-conforming community here in Meanjin and beyond. My name is Sev and my pronouns are he and they. It's an absolute privilege to have a space to share in trans excellence and trans joy. And I'm forever grateful for 4ZZZ for allowing us this space to amplify our voices. It's why I will be a lifelong 4ZZZ subscriber, and I highly, highly encourage you out there, if you're not already a member of our awesome community, please consider subscribing today. Every month there are now incredible prizes you can win just from becoming a 4ZZZ subscriber. For the month of December, it's a $300 swag of crumpler gear, so definitely get on that. You go into a draw to win a prize if you sign up in the month of December. We have subscription prices to suit all budgets and all situations. If you're a band, if you're a business, if you're a household, hell, if you're a pet listening at home, hello, who's a good boy? You are. Please consider subscribing to 4ZZZ. It does amazing things for the community and allows me to keep doing incredible stuff like this. Check us out, 4ZZZ.org.au/support. And now we get to do awesome stuff like this. Today I am joined in the studio by an awesome person, and I would say that because I am biased. They are one of my dearest friends in the entire world. I know them as Tej, but to an entire nation of people, they are known as Jayne.
Yeah.
Jayne, what is your official title, or what was your official title, please?
So I am the first ever openly trans crown of Lockhart. That doesn't mean I'm the first ever trans person who has been crowned, mind. So at the time I was King Jayne, and I am currently Count Jayne Hunter, Order of the Rose. So that means that I have served as consort within the SCA. So it just means I was one half of the crown. That's a whole lot of garbage.
Incredible. That is a beautiful amount of absolute nonsense to anyone who is not in the SCA. So, my darlings, to enlighten you, as I have over the years been enlightened by Count Jayne's ramblings
and info dumping.
Please tell us, what is the SCA?
So the SCA is, and to quote from their mission statement directly, an international, not-for-profit, volunteer educational organisation that is devoted to the research and recreation of pre-17th century skills, arts, combat, culture, and employing knowledge of history to enrich lives of participants through events, demonstration, and other educational presentations and activities. Essentially, we do medieval stuff, but how it should have been. It's sort of a cross between a LARP and a reenactment. So we take all the good stuff, and we don't take things like, we're explicitly trying to be non-racist, non-ableist, trying to be as inclusive as possible, and take all of the good stuff and none of the nonsense.
This is beautiful. So my understanding is that, so SCA, it stands for the Society of, is it Creative Anachronism?
Exactly, yeah.
And I, as a former embarrassing LARPer and steampunk and medieval reenactor myself, I'm very here for taking these historical concepts, reverence for the crafts and skills and history, knowledge, lost knowledge even. But obviously it must be viewed through a lens of modern, progressive, re-indigenizing, decolonial, anti-racist, pro-trans, right? You have to approach these, if you want to engage in them and like act in them in the modern, it's so essential that it is progressive and self-aware.
Yeah, and like with every community, because we have 30,000 international members over 20 different kingdoms, so a kingdom is just a group that is established with a crown. There's so many people that across that, of course, we're going to have issues with some people who aren't as fabulous or aren't as inclusive, and that's something that the SCA is trying to actively work on. We have a DEIB officer at a kingdom level recently, an international organisation level recently, which is really awesome. Shout out to Charles. And there's a whole lot of stuff growing in it, and just from a trans point of view, while I'm the second ever openly trans crown in the society, shout out to Count Jayne, the very first absolutely badass dude who has done this. He pronouns for Isolt. And I'm just the second. We currently have a third non-binary crown who is currently Rex Ursa of Artemisia, so that's over in Utah, that sort of an area in the Midwest in the US. And we also have 2 more heirs that have just won in Antia recently, so that's New York and Vancouver, that sort of area up in the northern US, so that's very, very, very exciting.
That's so cool. One of those things I think is really important. Now, obviously, I know, because I know you, you're one of the hardest working people I know in the entire world, and yet you still find every single scrap of your spare time to make your own costumes, like hand sew, hand create, hand craft. You learn how to weave. The only buddy of mine who we can, quickly talk, conversation will quickly flip from talking about drag to talking about, cool, weird alternative stuff to, I just bought a loom.
My fiance is very upset that I have so many looms and has forbidden me from buying any more.
Wait, how many looms do you own? I have to know.
I have 2 inkle looms, which aren't period but are fun to play with, and then I've got a 4-shaft loom and at least 1 rigid heddle loom. So I think 4.
There is one listener somewhere out there who is so nerdily excited right now.
And absolutely relating to it.
Yeah, well, I have no idea what you're talking about, I've got to say.
Yeah, fair.
But I watched you pour so much love and energy, and not just into the craft, not just into creating, because I understand arts and sciences is a whole part of the SCA kind of thing. But I've also watched you literally train with a sword for armed combat as part of this. This isn't soft, fluffy sword, LARP, foam guys all the time, is it?
So we've sort of got 3 or 4 different, depending on how you classify them, branches of combat within the SCA. So you have rattan combat, which is a rattan weaponry. We also have rapier, so actual metal swords has its own set of rules, so heavy and rapier are different. Then we also have archery, which can be warfield archery. We actually have a couple of different wars in Lockhart, so Great Northern up here in Meanjin, and then Rowaney Festival down further south. There's a bunch of different ways that these different groups interact. We also now have equestrian, which is up and coming in the SCA, so there's a whole lot of horse-related stuff that's really, really exciting. That community is growing very, very quickly, which is really awesome to see that growth within this organisation.
That's so exciting. And just to see, we know this to be true ourselves as trans non-binary folk, that representation, it sounds like one of those things that people like to, if you have to. But you can't, it's very hard to imagine becoming a thing that you can't see. This is why representation is so important. I know personally the impact that being a visible trans person in a larger community, what that really means for people, because it warms my heart constantly to be both a voice on the radio and a voice on stages around Meanjin, that people can recognize parts of themselves they haven't been able to say out loud yet because I'm shouting it into a microphone, and I know that that's a privilege that I get to do that, and I feel the gift that it puts out there. I can't imagine how many people you've touched just by being there, openly trans, wearing that crown, leading for... How long was your reign?
So I had a slightly longer than average reign and a slightly shorter than average time being heirs to the throne. So Tybalt and I won. So Tybalt's the guy that fought for me in a crown tournament, and I can go into what a whole crown tournament is in a mo. So he won for me in like the end of September, and we stepped up by Halloween. So we had just under 5 weeks to get all of our garb ready, get everything sorted. And then we reigned for 7 months, which is 1 month longer than it averages. Essentially, we have a crown tourney every 6 months. We choose new heirs. They're there for a few weeks, and then we hand over in a ordered and appropriate way rather than... And like some kingdoms do things like have a whole idea around however your predecessors like die or step down, or like there's a whole lot of different ways you can play that pageantry in really interesting and fun ways.
Yeah. I love how camp it's. I mean, it's wild to me that it wasn't already the queerest thing in the world, because it sounds so camp. I want to hear all about it. I want to talk to you about how people can find out about the SCA.
Absolutely.
And where we join. I want to come play with swords.
Yeah, come on, man.
All right.
How many genders are there?
I don't know. I just got here.
This is Transmission, amplifying the trans, gender non-conforming and non-binary voices of me and Jin and beyond. And I am joined in studio by my dear friend and former SCA royalty, incredible Jayne. Or should I say Count Jayne, is it now?
Whichever. I'm not that worried about it.
Your Majesty.
It's now, I think it's now Your Excellency.
Your Excellency.
You get different titles based on awards to a point. So when you get recognised for cool stuff, you get...
You can tell I never went to finishing school, right? I have no idea what any of these are. But this is so fun. So basically, for anybody out there who is interested in history, is interested in reenactment, is interested in like Ren fairs or LARPing, which I realize I've said like 7 times this episode and never actually said, stands for live action roleplay. It's basically the version of Dungeons and Dragons where you get a big foam sword and whack your mate over the head with it. I used to do quite a bit of it. I'm only slightly ashamed to admit. But SCA seems so much more, people who are in the Society for Creative Anachronism, like, you are all about that life.
Yeah, it's very much the thing that sort of sets us apart from a number of other groups is that we are so focused on a whole lot of like that excellence that came in the Middle Ages and looking at things within that, but also the traditions that we have grown out organically. So like having 2 halves of a crown, the sovereign who fights in a crown tournament for their inspiration, and the consort who inspires a fighter to win an actual tournament or a crown event. Crown is where you actually win the tournament, and then you get to be heirs, and then you step up to be rulers of the kingdom. So we're currently in the Kingdom of Lockhart, which is Australia and New Zealand, and the borders vary sometimes down to Antarctica. Just depends on which kingdoms most recently put their flag on it, which is quite fun. And there's just such a rich history, which does make it a little bit harder to join, but I think it's just such a rich and rewarding thing once you're in it that I absolutely just adore it.
And there are so many aspects to it. Like, I understand some people are completely dedicated to like roles of science and arts, where they make it their goal, their mission to perfect an old-fashioned technique for some kind of craft. So I understand that there are different metal workers, there are different fabric makers and workers, and
heaps of...
What other kind of skills have you come across?
So one that I've been watching quite closely recently is actually Viking bead making that I really want to get into, because I love fire and glassworking seems really cool, but I do not have the space for the tools or enough fire extinguishers for how clumsy I can be. A whole lot of weaving, there's a lot of costuming, and a lot of stuff can be just so varied and wild. So like, for example, I'm one of those people that's called a period hopper, where I wear like anything from like 16th century ledge connect with like leather booty hosen and codpiece, all the fun stuff. And like I also do Viking, you can explore so many different aspects, which is really, really fun. And like you said, I do weaving as well. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is I wove a trans pride belt a number of years ago, and I wore it every single event of my reign. There wasn't a single photo of me with that crown on, because we have one crown that like the physical crown that you wear that passes from crown to crown to crown, the people who rule, and there isn't a single photo of me with that crown on without the trans pride belt on my body. which I thought was so important.
And these aren't just photos that people who attend SCA events are seeing. Like these, the SCA is an international organization. You keep on track of what other, nations are doing. This is visibility of a trans crown for the whole world to see within this hobby group. And I just think that's incredible and beautiful. Can you share with us like some of the key moments for you? Why was being an openly trans crown so important to you, and what impact did you see that have?
So I didn't really walk into it intending to be this whole inspirational thing. I had entered a couple of crown tournaments as a fighter because I just love fighting, and it's that sort of higher level fighting where everyone's watching you, and like that freaks me out because I'm a bit stage shy, which is very funny given the context we're currently in. And I had been asked by my mate Tybalt to enter crown with him because there was this whole big tournament that was going to be a crown and a coronation on the same day because of COVID and a number of extenuating circumstances. And at that event I had somebody come up to me, and we didn't win this one, but I had somebody come up and they were talking about their trans kid. This was down in Innisfail, so Tasmania, and they just gave me a hug and told me how much it meant to their kid to just see me exist in that space and to be so open, because I sort of went from initially just being like, oh yeah, I'll go with lady, whatever, like just not really embracing my transness in that context and not being out yet, to being like, oh no, I can't keep passing as femme. It's not a thing. I'm just gonna be a bit more openly queer. Like I'll use Lady Lord as a joint title, like, and then just being myself. And it was just existing as me in that space that was more important than anything. And I really remember this really poignant moment just after Tybalt won the crown tournament that we did win, where our predecessors, Saf and Elaine, took us, and we just had a little meeting, and they were like, because like Elaine is actually my ex, hilariously, in the grand tradition of queer people staying really good friends after breakups. And they were like, we want to check in. What titles do you guys want? What's most comfy? How do we support you? And I was like, I can't use princess. Like, I know that's a new thing. Like I was the very first openly trans person who had won a crown tournament. And I was like, I can't do the femme thing. I really can't. Prince, and that's it. To have that really clear, like, this is who I am from the very get-go, and having such supportive predecessors just made all the difference. And it was just really wonderful in all those respects.
I'm so glad to hear that your predecessors made that space for you. This is the thing that I think a lot of people, potentially like cis people and allies, they miss, is that they might see people like you or myself be like, yeah, that person, that strong person has made this difference and stood up and been visible. But the truth is, we are in the spaces we are comfortable and confident and finding our own paths, often because other people also are cracking open those doors.
Absolutely.
And inviting us to be genuine and honest with ourselves and honest with them in a place that is safe to do so.
Absolutely.
That takes the work of the community, right?
Absolutely. There's always a context to how literally everybody exists, and to have such a positive context to walk into and have that really explicit support from people who were at that time in charge of the entire kingdom, and like also happened just to be really dear mates of mine, was just, it set me up so well. And it meant that there was very clear messaging from the start. There was obvious check-ins, and even throughout the reign after they stepped down, like they would just invite me over for dinner to check in how I was doing, making sure that I was surviving. Elaine is actually a knight in his own right, so Count Sir Elaine Cartier, or whatever his name is. I love him, but as a wanker.
To be fair,
sorry,
I'm pretty sure you all are.
Look, yes. But just having him and Saf like role model the appropriate behaviour and explicitly using the correct pronouns all the time, and just checking in constantly was the biggest help. And having that leadership from the top meant that, like, even though the vast majority of the community was already like bang on, it meant that those people that were a little bit like, oh, I'm not sure about this whole trans thing, would just, didn't understand it, but just kept vibing with it. And that clear demonstration was so helpful.
And this is exactly the thing. What I really love, large organizations, large groups like this, it's actually such a great way to model progressive attitudes with the community, because I know within the SCA, and like I know enough of you beautiful reenacting freaks. I can call you that. I was a LARPer.
Yeah, I'll take anything.
You're cooler than I am. It's fine. But I know, I mean, maybe it's just because it's my people that I know, but everybody I know who's in the SCA is in the LGBTQIA plus community, is neurodivergent, is probably polyamorous.
Oh, huge polyam community.
Right. So this is the thing. When you have a huge organization where there is already so much queerness, even if people don't necessarily get it right, don't understand, are confused, haven't had much exposure to trans people and our needs and rights and lives, you're already so well primed in a place like that where there's already so much queerness and non-monogamy. You know, people who are used to exploring the fringes of, you know, sexuality and relationships. Trans people can't be too terrifying to most of them, right? We've all come across. So it's the other people. It's the cis-het people who are there, cis-het people and their families. Like, I understand that SCA is quite family-oriented. There's a lot of families.
Absolutely. And the role of the consort does include things like the Mouse Guard. So the Mouse Guard is an award that we have for kids who are like doing cool stuff and helping out, and there's an entire definition that I could read you, but I'm not going to find it in time. But they are the consort's guard, and so being the first king consort was a big deal because I was like, oh god, are these parents going to be weird about it? Is anyone going to be like protective? Like, I'm just going to, like, you know, I just had to go and exist in that space, and it worked out really well. Like, so there was a whole like Easter egg hunt because I got to reign during festival, which is the biggest event in Lockark. And it was just like, you know, running around having a bunch of fun and like getting to fight all the knights. So it was just me and a horde of children just running at people in armor, all of whom knew that the kids would be way more vicious than they were ever going to be. They all put on more armor than they'll take to war. Exactly. Like, it's impressive.
The kids don't care about pulling their blows.
No, they do not.
That's wonderful. And I think that's really beautiful because it's not, in my mind at least, it's not actually the kids who need positive examples the most. I think for the most part the kids are doing all right. They're getting more examples than we ever did growing up. So much more.
Yeah.
But what's really powerful is their parents, their families, their guardians knowing and trusting in you, in this group, in the progressive nature of the SCA, and trans leadership. And I love to see it. I love to see it so much. So if I, a very, very unfit, disabled, neuroqueer trans person, wanted to come along and try my hand out at some SCA stuff. I understand I don't necessarily have to be an epic swordsman, even if I just wanted to come along and learn some arts and crafts and skills. How would I do that, and when and where? Absolutely.
So if you want to go purely online, you can go to www.sca.org/join -us/, and that'll get you to the international page to look for different groups. If you just want to rock up, there are 2 baronies in Brisbane, so Meanjin, one north and one south side. The north side is Riverhaven, and they have a arts and sciences night every Wednesday, pretty much. We do take a break over the summer just because it gets so hot. And you can just rock up to that. I think it's $5 for hall cost and then whatever insurance costs. And then every Monday, and we've just had the last one yesterday, unfortunately, on the south side is fighter practice. So we have archery, rapier, and heavy armoured fighting. So that's the rattan fighting down on Frederick Street at the Bridge Club. $10 for insurance, I believe it is, and $5 to rock up. Just give it a crack for either of those. So it's really, really exciting. You can also look up the baronies. So that's Riverhaven as 2 words, and St. Florian as 2 words again. Baronies. We have Facebook groups, so feel free to just join.
That rules. And if anyone is feeling uncertain, unsure if they are, you know, LGBTQIA plus community or have access needs or anything like that, is there anyone particular they should be reaching out to before coming along, just to check in?
Most groups actually have what's called a chatelaine. So it's somebody who helps newcomers in terms of like getting them in garb and helping access needs. I am also just happy to be contacted. If you ask for Jane at an event, most people will know who you're talking about because I'm a little bit loud and obnoxious.
A little bit.
So if you're, you know, in the local area, I'm more than happy to help out. My Instagram is also Valkyrie of the North with underscores underneath each, so feel free to reach out to me directly through there because I am more than happy to help, especially anybody in our community who needs that access need met.
Tej, you absolute legend. I'm sorry, Count Jayne.
Call me what you want, darling. It's fine.
I got to get me a title. I
Yeah.
got to get my lord made official.
Heck yeah.
Now, beyond being a sword-wielding, codpiece making...
With pockets in the codpiece.
With pockets, because you know what's up. Just absolute super queer that you are. I understand that there is a lot of support and power behind the throne too.
So much.
Please tell me about your beautiful fiancé.
So, aside from, of course, the costuming team and the entire guard and household who are amazing, my fiancé is a absolute badass. Tay uses she, they pronouns, and I could not have done this or reigned without her explicit and ongoing support. She put so much on hold and prioritized us and our baby. Our baby's name is Mix Pickle, our beautiful ginger cat who causes absolute heinous chaos at all points in time. Absolutely love her. But yeah, like Tay just stepped up for us, like was making me a whole lot of like lunches to take to work because I was on a secondment for my mundane job, and like was just running around dropping me off at the airport. Like I think at one point I was away from home every weekend for 7 weeks in a row leading up to coronation.
And it's not like you do a easy day job either. Like you're one of the hardest working people I know. I said that earlier. I barely got to see you as your best mate during your reign because of how...
we saw each other during the reign.
I saw you just before you started, and you came and showed me all your crowns and everything just as you were ending. But that was literally it. I really felt for Tay during that time period. God, yeah. But I know how dedicated she was to supporting you. And I'm just so happy and grateful for the both of you. And in exciting news, you two are tying the knot, yeah?
We are. So, of course, Sev is pretending that this is new news, having come with us ring shopping when I accidentally proposed, and then Tay and I were like, oh shit, we're serious.
Show me something queerer.
So we got engaged about, just over a year ago, and we're getting married in August next year. So if you know any amazing caterers who are relatively cheap, drop me a line.
Gay caterers, reach out to dear TJ here. We need some help.
Backyard cheapo wedding vibes. It's going to be great.
I mean,
like classy cheapo.
That's where the best parties are at.
Yeah. Says you, the best man. Best dude.
I am very, for the first time in my life, being considered both the best and the best man. I'm very excited for best man duties.
I've got you the suspenders already. We've got matching suspenders. You and me.
I am now learning this for the first time, and that
you're welcome.
is incredible news. We can't talk more about trans joy and trans excellence than a just euphorically beautiful trans and queer as hell wedding with a very queer wedding party.
Oh yes,
I'm so excited.
Bring out your best. Wear whatever makeup you want.
Oh, is it a glitter beard? Ooh.
We could do matching glitter. Actually, no. Tay wants me to...
You have to be able to make out with your wife.
I do have to be able to make out with my wife. And she wants a Sword Lesbians photo shoot. So, like, being non-binary and incredibly gender fluid, I am absolutely up for the task. So I'm going to have to do a costume change directly after the ceremony. And I have to buy a prettier sword than I currently have because all of mine are rattan.
So, are you exchanging swords? Are you just having your own swords? I have to know everything about this.
I think the plan is to buy fabulous swords at some point in the next 10 months, and then just have a photo shoot where we just like pose with swords and look really pretty.
Oh, are you then going to mount them like on a shield in your house? And
I think that's the plan.
Oh,
I have to ask her for more details, but she is so excited, and I'm so excited. And like, so my original plan, I had a whole plan for proposing, which was commission her a sword and propose with that. But I have absolutely crippling ADHD and terrible impulse control, and our actual like engagement just was so organic that neither of us really planned it. The question, like, it was literally just slipped out of my mouth, and it felt really right. And so, instead of the whole elaborate plan I had, she got this instead. So, we'll work it out. It'll be amazing.
She got it blurted out of your mouth in a trip ring shopping with your bestie. But so you've really got to come.
Bestie. Don't forget, Rosie's coming too. To the wedding.
You really better do well on this sword situation.
Oh yes.
Then.
I've started researching. I've got a couple of mates in the SCA actually who like make beautiful, beautiful swords. But it depends on what she wants. I don't know, because we don't need a fighting fit sword, but we need something beautiful.
It does need to be gorgeous.
It needs to be gorgeous. Hopefully won't stab anyone.
Well, I'm very excited to see how this all turns out, and I promise that Transmission socials will eventually be updated with awesome non-binary sword lesbian wedding photos, because
Absolutely.
we all deserve that power and energy in our lives. Just for our last couple of minutes together, Jane, I wanted to ask you quickly to tell me about the crown that you got to, the physical crown that you got to wear, because you have both your crown, but there was a trans crown specifically.
Yeah, so there is the block art crowns that like roses on the consorts and low leaves on the sovereigns, and they've been worn by every single crown. So I was the 41st crown of Lockhart. But when you step down from your first reign, you get a patent royal, and you become a count or a countess, or a non-binary version, and there's a couple of different titles. And you are allowed to wear an embattled coronet. And so I freaked out about this, being like, oh god, how do I organise it? What if I don't get my county? What if something goes wrong? What if I accidentally trip and fall and ruin the entire kingdom and I'm not allowed anything and get banished? It was never going to happen, but I am unreasonably anxious. And so I was sort of confiding some of this into Isolt, who was the first ever openly trans crown. And they and I were talking, and they actually got their county with a particular coronet. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we all future non-binary and trans crowns got it with the same one? And it just sort of evolved from this beautiful organic conversation in a campsite at Rowaney Festival. And he was just like, yeah, like that sounds really badass, and then presented it to me in court the next day as a presentation, and talked about the Argent, Azure and Rose communities, so the trans community within the SCA, and had this beautiful speech that I can't remember for the life of me. And
but now there is a physical trans
coronet
that has been passed from you. Now it's been sent off to the next person who will wear it.
So it will be presented in court this weekend at a Yule event in Artemisia in Utah. One of my dearest mates is getting this thing called a Pelican, which is this really high award for the amount of stuff that you do for people. And at that, Rex Ursa will receive the actual coronet, and when they step down, they will get their county with it. And there's 2 more heirs over in Antia now in line, so it's just such an exciting time.
Amazing. Well, congratulations, hail to the new king.
Absolutely. Long live the crown.
Jane, thank you so much for being here on Transmission. Thank you everybody for listening, and as always, Transmission will be here every Tuesday from 9 till 10. Thanks so much for listening. Good day.
Thank you so much for listening to Transmission. See you next Tuesday, 9 to 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.